Bay of Bengal has always been described as the hotbed of cyclones. The worst cyclones that have hit India have all originated here. But now, deadly cyclones are also forming in the relatively calm waters of Arabian Sea. In fact, in 110 years, between 1891 and 2001, the Arabian Sea saw just 98 cyclones. But in the next 20 years, between 2001 and 2020, Arabian Sea has already seen 28 cyclones. Clearly, the number of cyclones have increased and so has the intensity. Is this going to be our new reality then, where rare events become common? How will this impact India, a nation of 1.2 billion people whose primary occupation, agriculture, is completely dependent on the weather? How will climate change impact India?
Three factors are very clear. One is general increase in rainfall. What's more worrying is that the frequency and intensity of high rainfall events would increase, number one. Number two, there will be increase in the variation of rainfall, year-to-year variation. We call coefficient of variation. Between 1 year you may have a lot of rain in southern Karnataka. Next year you have much less. Thirdly, heat stress. Heat stress days, especially in the northeastern districts, Bidar, Gulbarga, Bijapur, Raichur, Ballari, they will experience very high extents of heat stress events or heat waves.
Irregular rainfall and frequent heat waves are here to stay. Our farmers will have no choice but to adapt to this new reality. Can you imagine the consequences it might have in India, where over 50% of area under food cultivation is rain dependent? And this accounts for over 40% of food production. This is what most people forget. Climate change is not just about melting polar caps, but also about food security. The farming crisis of this nation is in fact directly linked to the climate change.
You go to any villager, I've traveled across rural India, from Himalayas to Kerala, I've talked to villagers. One thing they say is, in the recent years, their ability to forecast, predict rain has declined. So this is a big problem for farmers. They cannot plan sowing, they cannot plan harvesting, they don't know which crop to grow. See, if there's a normal rainfall, they know when it will rain how much it will rain in May, June, July, August, September. Accordingly, they will grow groundnut, ragi, sorghum, millets and many other crops. But the biggest problem for farmers would be firstly, year-to-year variation. Maybe we don't know whether next year would be a very high rainfall event or very low rainfall. Or if there's very rainfall, there could be severe high-intensity rainfall events after the crop is matured. Then the whole crop is damaged.
When you're a farmer, what do you do when your crops fail? You move to cities and other urban areas in search of livelihood. According to the 2011 census, over 4 crore people migrated within India. Out of this, 64% from rural areas, especially from Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, which fall under Indo-Gangetic region, one of South Asia's intensely cultivated places. In this paper here, which was just published a month ago on Nature, this link between rural to urban migration and climate change is made much clearer. Rising temperature adversely impacts the agriculture, thereby increasing the vulnerability of the marginalized agriculture-dependent rural populations. Thus, climate change can be a catalyst for such migrants to relocate in search of better living conditions and alternate livelihoods.
One of the challenges which is not adequately understood or appreciated is what you said rightly is a migration. Everyone knows that Bangladesh is most vulnerable to sea level rise and cyclones, hurricanes. Then obviously there will be increased pressure on Indian border from Bangladesh refugees. Simply they're climate refugees, not economic refugees. And again within India, across the states, in some states, if drought becomes very persistent or flood becomes they will all move to Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad. Big cities attract poor people from rural areas.
Since increasing heat in urban areas is linked to population growth, the influx of migrants will only amplify the effect of heat waves. Remember the Delhi heat wave last month? Coastal cities like Mumbai, which attract the most number of migrants, are already vulnerable to sea level rise and floods. In a disaster like a cyclone, these poor communities who live in the margins will obviously be the most hit. Of course, India has a national action plan for climate change under which there are various missions such as solar, water, sustainable habitat. But this is not nearly enough. Soon, India will be in Glasgow attending 26th UN Climate Change Conference.
India will try to say that India is at the receiving end of the climate change. Our contribution historically has been marginal. Even currently per capita emissions are marginal. So we are doing our best. It is for the other countries, richer countries and other big emitters. They have a bigger responsibility. Whatever India is trying to do, whatever US and China are trying to do is not enough. If all the countries implement their NDCs, nationally determined contributions submitted in 2015, but the world could still warm close to 3 degrees. What governments have promised around the world, including India, is not adequate.
Climate change has always been a topic that is discussed on international platforms. If we are to address the challenges of climate change, it needs to become a local issue. This is not my opinion, but that of scientists like N.H. Ravindranath.
It's time now that government agencies and other industries, corporates, municipalities at taluk, district, state level also take climate change seriously and incorporate it in their decision making, incorporate it in their planning. If you are planning a road, a bridge, a minor irrigation project, any land, water related infrastructure or asset, you have to consider climate change. Actually, what we scientists, modelers thought that will happen, in decades away, many of the things are already happening. So I think we have to wake up that climate change is already here.